In this video, I sit down with AJ Johnson, who is a member of my private community, and he started his real estate journey the way that most of us do, long-term rentals. Well, like many of us, AJ eventually ran into the biggest nightmare, and that's tenants refusing to pay. Mortgage payments were piling up, property managers didn't care, and AJ was left footing the bill. It nearly drove him away from real estate completely until he made a switch. AJ moved to Airbnbs. They're shorter stays, more control, and way fewer headaches. It was a perfect match. AJ's Airbnb has brought in consistent profit up to $8,000 per month in some cases. Now, these deep dive interviews used to be exclusive to my paid membership, but the strategies are just too valuable to keep private, so I'm releasing them weekly on this channel. Feel free to check out the previous ones right here as well. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Preston. I built a $15 million real estate portfolio and make $400,000 per year in net profit from my Airbnbs. In this interview, we're going to cover the biggest mistake that most people make with management companies and how you can avoid it, the X factor that makes AJ's Airbnb stand out from the competition, and how to manage an Airbnb the right way, even if you're juggling a full-time job. We go into a whole lot more as well, so let's dive in.
All right, we got AJ Johnson. Thank you for hopping on. I know you're traveling, but thanks for making the time here. So,
of course,
wanted to have a conversation with you, AJ, just because I know you've been crushing with your Airbnb portfolio. So, a couple of things, there's a couple strategies within the Airbnb game that I want to kind of get into. Most people, they start with arbitrage, but I know you just jumped in purchasing properties. So, before we get to all that, if you want to just give us a background of who you are, maybe what you did before this, and then what you're up to now.
Yeah. So, AJ Johnson. And I have been in the real estate game for probably about the past 10 years, off and on, right? Off and on. I was renting a house that I was living in, but I had to move quickly. So I ended up renting it out, and that was my first entry into real estate. I eventually sold that house and got out of the real estate game for a little bit, but then I returned more recently and kind of just went full send on an Airbnb and short terms. My background is in cyber, right? I've been working in the cyber field for the past about 14 years, and which is cool, but you're not really working for yourself unless you own your own company. So I kind of wanted to expand my investment portfolio and also take back some of the control of my my financial freedom.
So I know you mentioned you've been in real estate for the last 10 years. When you first started, what are some of the business models that you were working on, and then what made you want to shift gears to more of the short-term rental game?
Yeah, so when I first started, it was out of necessity. I was pursuing a career, and I got a call where they said, "Hey, look, we need for you to, if you want this job, we need you to move even within the next 30 days." And I said, "Okay, I'll make it happen." And so that meant that the house that I had just bought, I needed to either sell or rent. And trying to be smart with my money, I was like, let me just go ahead and try my best to get this thing rented out. So I did exactly that. And in terms of trying to do things quickly, I went and found a management company that was local. I told them, hey, I need to rent out this property. Can you guys handle this for me? And they were, of course, very much so interested in taking on my account. So I went with the management company, and then I popped smoke and traveled for work. And that actually was not the greatest situation, right? It's different when you have somebody else carrying or taking care of your property and you don't vet them. I think it's really important to be very mindful. If you're going to get into bed with a management company, understand that they have probably dozens of other accounts, and they're probably not going to look after your property in the way that you want it looked after. And they will find a tenant, like whoever that is, a tenant to be in there. So we had a couple of issues over the years, and I ended up separating from them. And when the market was right, I ended up selling the property because they had gotten a tenant in there who had just decided that he was going to stop paying. It's just like, yeah, I know the monthly rent is due, but I'm not paying. And basically, based off of where the house was, there wasn't really many options for me to pursue in terms of getting him to pay and getting him out of the house. So it was just best for me to just offload that property. And I took a little break from real estate after that because it was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine, right? And that's every person that wants to get into real estate's biggest nightmare, right? Having a tenant, having this house, this mortgage that you're on the hook for, but you're not getting the rent in. So, I completely understand why you, kind of shifted away from real estate for a little bit. So what kind of made you want to make the shift into short-term rentals here now a few years later?
So short-term rentals, in the short-term rental space, the short turnaround of your investment, right? So the short time frame that you're working with having a tenant in the actual property is what drew me to it, right? Because now I'm not worried about signing a 2-year lease where if they stop paying after a year and a half, now I have to go and figure things out. I have to go to court, I have to get lawyers, I have to do all this extra stuff. It's short term. So now I'm only worried about like, hey, they're only going to be in there for 7 days, right? Most of the time it's going to be less than that. And that allows for me to have a lot more hands-on with the property and have a better understanding of, hey, where is the property at in terms of maintenance, right? Is there anything that's broken? Is there anything that needs to be tended to? Is the property actually being taken care of? And when you have that, when you have short terms in place, it allows for you to have a lot more touch points with the property, where now you're understanding property's taken care of. And it's also, now it's getting cleaned 2-3 times a week and it's being well maintained. So your investment is actually appreciating. Whereas sometimes with long terms, your investment can go down, it can tank basically because you have a bad tenant in there that you didn't think was a bad tenant. You were just like, hey, we signed a lease, they checked all the boxes, the background check, and now, somehow I have a hole in my floor or, or something else that is going to cost you an enormous amount of money for you to even recoup your investment. So the short-term aspect of the quick turnaround of tenants, right? The quick turnaround of guests, the multiple touch points where you have cleaners coming in and out and taking care of the property and taking notice of things that are wrong or things that might need to be fixed. And then also the quick turnaround on your money, right? Like that guest gets in there and then they get out and you get your money. It's not necessarily like you have to wait every month on the month and then you get paid, hopefully, if they pay. Once they're in and once they get out, you have your money.
So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about how did you identify that first market? Kind of walk me through your market research process on how you were able to land on that first market for your Airbnb.
Yeah, so I probably did it the wrong way. So let's back up. I got into this game with short terms because I had stayed at a lot of Airbnbs already. I like the concept of Airbnbs. I like the concept of short terms because I just felt like when you have an Airbnb versus a hotel room, I'm choosing Airbnb like almost every time, unless my options are slim to none. So when I saw the business model of Airbnb, I was really attractive from a consumer perspective, but being a part of that business model drew me in even more. So when we would travel and go around to all these Airbnbs, I would get ideas, right? How's my experience? Like this Airbnb had this really cool amenity that's new. And I think probably a lot of people could attest that over the years, we've seen Airbnbs really start to pull out a lot more amenities and a lot more experiences, and they're really leveling up their game. And when I saw how you have Airbnbs that are competing with, 5-star hotels in terms of the amenities that they offer, it kind of really opened up my eyes to going into this space. So through our travel, it really kind of drove me to keep an eye on things. And next thing you know, I wound up in Asheville, right? And it was a place that I just wanted to go to. But when I was there, I realized that this location has everything that you would really want for a short term. It has local attractions. It has local things to do, right? So there's things that you can go see locally, and there's things that you can go do locally, from whitewater rafting to hiking to biking to just sightseeing. There's a lot that you can do. And then there's a huge tourist element for the local towns and suburbs around all of that area. So for me, it kind of checked the multiple boxes because it had the local places that you could go and see things, local experiences, and then there was an entire economy based around the tourism economy. So that's what made me think, the Asheville region, this whole Blue Ridge area is not only beautiful, but it's also a really good market for tapping into the short-term market. However, it is what some people would call a little saturated. So there was a little bit of hesitancy in terms of, do we jump into a market that's really saturated? And if we do, how do we distinguish ourselves and make ourselves different than the rest?
Yeah, that's a lot of good points that you're making. And especially when you go into a more competitive market, what are some of the things that you looked out for when you chose the particular property that you guys bought?
So I searched for about 6 to 7 months for this property. And what I was looking for was a bit of the X factor, right? And when I say the X factor, I mean something that makes a property unique. Unique to the level where you won't go to another property and see something like it, right? Or there are very few and few properties far in between that you'll actually be able to see anything similar, right? So the X factor that I was looking for was the ability to have views as part of the property. Like literally you walk out the front door or the back door or one of the doors and there's some sort of mountain view, because that's why a lot of people come to this area. If they're coming to the area to see the mountains, then give them that. One of the things that I always think about when I'm doing business is whenever you're dealing with a customer, meet them where they want to be. Don't meet them where they are, right? So when I say meet them where they want to be, if they're coming to an area for an attraction and it's something that you can figure out, like views of mountains, if you can incorporate that into your Airbnb, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like it's an actual view of a mountain. It can be a mural. It can be something that's unique to your place, and you can incorporate that into your Airbnb. That's going to be a distinguishing factor. So when we were looking, I was looking for views, and I was looking for, is this as close to turnkey as possible, right? So I can start to get this thing rented out as soon as possible. And then the third thing I was looking for was space. It's hard to do a lot with a little, right? With you have a small footprint and you got a really small yard. I'm not knocking that at all. Like there's people that have done phenomenal things with these small spaces. But if you have more space, you can do more things with that space. So another piece or another requirement that I was looking for was I wanted space. I wanted there to be like at least some sort of backyard, front yard, something that would allow for us to for people to go outside. Because at the end of the day, if they're coming to this area, which is an area that is very outdoor focused, outdoor recreations, they're not coming to the area to stay inside of a house, right? A lot of times they're coming to the area and they're going outside to experience being in nature. So if I can give them that experience so they don't have to leave to go and find it somewhere else, that means that now I have provided an amenity in of itself that is going to allow people to want to rent my place over somebody else's that's just 4 walls.
100%. And maybe, you can pull up your listing here if you want to share your screen. And as you're pulling that up, I know you mentioned a couple of really interesting things. And especially when you're purchasing a short-term rental, you have to look for these differentiating factors, not only in terms of amenities, but with the actual property itself. So it's very hard to replicate a really nice view. It's really hard to replicate having that experience that you're mentioning, because I think a lot of people just kind of focus too much on, I'm just going to buy this house because it's cheap, and I think I can make the numbers work. But if you don't have, these different moats that you can, build yourself into, like it's going to be much harder for the competition to come out and, replicate that. So especially when you're purchasing a property, number one, and number two, when you are going into a more, saturated market, as you would say.
100%. You actually brought up a really good point about replicating, right? If you can, so there's only so much earth, right? And if you can snatch up a piece of it and make it unique, then you're providing an experience. And I wanted to kind of touch on this whole experience piece because at the end of the day, I think, and look, this is just AJ's, thoughts, but my thought is Airbnb is a business that in the business of not housing or lodging, they're in the experience business, right? Because someone will pay far more for an experience than they will for just a place to sleep, right? It's why people go and travel and go places, right? They want to have an experience because experiences are unforgettable, right? It's the only thing that you can take with you. So when you create these spaces, you create an Airbnb, think about how you can make it an experience, because that's what people are going to pay for. Right? When they look at your daily rate and they're like, that's high, what are they going to rationalize? Their thought process is going to be like, well, is it worth it? And the question that you need to think is, how can I provide them something that they will make them think it's worth it, right? Is it views? Is it really cool amenities? Is it something unique that they won't be able to find anywhere else? The world's your oyster. Like, you can do anything, get creative, but as long as you can provide them something so that when they're trying to decide that nightly rate, is that worth it? And they come back with the yes, because I'll never have anything like this again, or look at those views, or look at that really cool game that they have, that answers the question.
So talk to me about your budget for furnishing the place, the designs, the amenities. What were we looking at for that?
Preston, there was a budget, and then there wasn't a budget. Take it for what it's worth. It was one of those things where I had a moment where I said, here's my set budget for this, right? And I think the budget for design was $50,000, and the budget for renovations was somewhere around $50,000, and then the amenities budget, I think I had allocated about 20 for the amenities budget. This is before we started working and getting things going. After that, the budget blew up, and it blew up because we saw the potential of the property, and it came to a point where it's like, do we blow up the budget and just say full send and get to the finish line of exactly where we need to go? Because we knew these amenities need to be of this quality, of this caliber, and in order to drive that ADR up, we have to have these things. Because you look around and you look at the competition, and you're saying, okay, my competition over here has a nice 6-person hot tub. My competition over here has a full game room. My competition over here has a little gym, right? Or my competition over here has a full pickleball court. How am I going to compete and ask for a higher ADR or a higher nightly rate than them if I don't have comparable amenities or something that's different that's going to drive people here? So initially, that was the budget. And we stayed on par with the budget for the design element. Partially, we worked with Summerlid, who I think you worked with in the past as well. We worked with Summerlid to do the design, which was crucial, right? Because I think of myself as a hammer, right? And sometimes you need a scalpel. And so they were able to put like specific touches and specific elements into the space. But it wasn't necessarily something that I would have done flawlessly on my own. I also worked with another designer named Libby Supik. She's on IG, you can find her. She was also instrumental at designing the gym, which is now, I think, probably one of the better parts of the property. So the design piece, we stayed inside the budget. Renovations, that budget got blown completely away. Lesson learned, like, and anybody who's listening or watching this, when you're doing these renovations, find contractors that you trust and that are competent, because if you don't, you will pay twice. It's a fact. And
Yep.
You'll either pay twice back to back, or you're going to pay probably quadruple because now it's gone on longer and it wasn't done right. And now you have to either cancel a couple of reservations because now you have to go back and fix something that wasn't done properly. So the renovation budget, that completely blew up. And then the amenities budget, like I said, that also blew up as well. And we ended up spending probably, I want to say the amenities budget definitely blew up to probably it was 20 from that, probably double. And then the renovations budget I lost track. So it was just a moment where we had to make a choice of, is this investment worth it?
Yeah, and a couple interesting things you mentioned, and lessons obviously for the people that are watching this as well. One thing is, especially since you're buying this property and this is going to be a long-term game, you kind of, I'm sure you were like, okay, we're going to put all this stuff in. You saw the competition. If we don't get to that level, then maybe this property is going to just start underperforming, which you weren't going to accept. And so you just, spend the extra money. And I'm sure, with the way your listing looks and everything that's set up, you're going to get paid that money back eventually. It's just a matter of like, I'm just going to wait, I'm going to play long-term game. It's going to be maybe back in a few years, but I can, wait to do that. So I think that's really smart. Another aspect of this, I'm sure, is you said you're a workout junkie. I'm sure you designed this place for the opportunity for you to stay in it as well. And that's like that's the beauty of the short-term rental is you can have all these properties across the world, even the country, and be like, I'm going to go stay at my place because I can, so I'm sure that was another deciding factor, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Preston, you're spot on. You're spot on. I think for myself and my better half, when we were building this, when we were making this property, we really put our heart and soul into this, and in a way that it was like, hey, what do we like, right? Because we've traveled intentionally to some really nice places, literally to not steal their ideas, but to get inspiration, right? And when we were getting this inspiration, we were like, these amenities, gym, hot tub, sauna, and now coming here in the next 30 days, full pickleball court. These amenities are these ones that we would like to have, right? And if so, why, right? And the why really boiled down to making memories. And like, I want everybody watching this to take this with them. Make memories and you will make money, period. If it's an experience that you're providing, that experience will make memories. When people think and they go to book and they look at this, or look at your listing, they think to themselves, oh, it will be really cool for us or whoever they're traveling with to sit there and catch that sunset, or for us to play that game. They envision themselves there. And what are they envisioning? They're envisioning themselves there doing what? Making memories, right? So when you make these memories, think of it, it literally can translate make memories, make money. And at the end of the day, for us, it wasn't really about making the money. Don't get me wrong, like the money is great, but we really get a lot of value out of when guests come and they write to us and they say, this place is amazing. I'm so glad I booked it. And also, we haven't had one guest say that we're not coming back. Every guest has said, we're coming back. We'll let you know. We'll book direct. And perfect. Great. Let's do it. But at the end of the day, that recidivism lets you know that people are enjoying making memories at your place. So make your goal to make memories.
So, moving forward, I know, you had a bit of a hiccup with the property management company you're working with. And, maybe you can kind of go into that, briefly, and then we'll talk about, what you're projecting profit-wise for this property moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to hit a couple things on this one, to be honest. So when I built this property, it was backbreaking work. I'm not going to lie to you. I know there's a lot of people out here, a lot of these Airbnb gurus, and this is why I like working with you, Preston, because in my opinion, you keep it real. There's a lot of Airbnb gurus who get out there and they say, oh, buy the property and then, furnish it and you'll be hands off and you'll be making money in no time. I beg to differ. I'm like, I think there is a strategy where you can do that with very small footprint Airbnbs that maybe you can do an arbitrage with, definitely arbitrage where you can have a very small footprint and you can get those up and running. But the way that I did it, and I willingly knew I was going to be investing a lot of my time and energy and money into it, it was backbreaking labor for probably about 3 months. During that time of those 3 months, it was an imperative that I got as much done as possible. But once those 3 months were up, I was like, I have to go back to work. It wasn't like I was taking off from work. I was working the entire time. And at the end of the day, you're pulling from a limited resource. And I was like, I need to get back to my grind on work. So I literally had to leave the property and went to work. And then once I left the property, I said, I don't have the time right now, or at least I thought that I don't have the time to manage this property. I got it to this point. I cut down all the trees. I put up all the drywall. I put in all these amenities. We're good. Now I'm going to bring in somebody else to take on the whole management piece. That was a mistake. That was a mistake, and let my mistake be your learning lesson. It is not as difficult as a management company is going to make you think it is. You can 100% do the management yourself, especially if you have 1 or 2 or even 3 bookings. You can totally manage it yourself, and you can do so with the VA easily. A management company is going to make you think that they're going to provide you with all these different things, and it's going to be this special engagement, and they're going to take really great care of your property. And some of them might, right? The one that I dealt with, that was not the case at all. And they were touted as one of the top, short-term rental companies in the country. That wasn't the case. There were a lot of things, a lot of flaws that I noticed throughout the entire time that I worked with them. And I realized nobody is going to manage this property the way that I want it to be managed, right? Nobody's going to take care of this property the way that I want it to be taken care of. Now, does that mean that I'm down there cleaning it all the time? No. What that means is I needed to go through the process of managing it myself so that I can show someone else how to manage it, which meant fumbling through dealing with a management company who, may not have been as transparent with me about things and things breaking and things not working properly. I had to come down to my house to find out the air conditioner wasn't working, light bulbs were out, like all of these things. And I'm sitting here touting the property as a place of excellence, and it's not being managed like a place of excellence. So I guess the big takeaway is manage it yourself. Learn how to manage that property yourself, and then train someone, either a VA or somebody local, right? And I was lucky enough to find someone local that I trusted, and now I have them in place, and they're taking care of almost everything, right? To the point where now it's kind of like a VA, but they're just the person there. They go back, they check, they do audits on the cleaning team, they make sure everything's humming, they make sure nothing's broken. They get things in tip-top shape for guests. They write nice little notes. Those small, little fine details that provide people with a kickstart to their experience actually goes very far in terms of the guest experience and how they feel about being at your place. So they handle all of that. So my mistake and your lesson, manage it yourself before you go and onboard a management company. And the other thing is, please read that contract. If you do onboard a management company, read that contract, because in my situation, it was almost like I was trapped and I couldn't get out of this management situation clean. So I currently still have bookings from this management company, which of course, love to honor those because we want the guests to have a great experience. But when you're paying 25% to somebody else just because they found your booking, leaves a bit of a salty taste in your mouth. So just be mindful. You can do it yourself. 100%.
Really good lessons in there. So moving forward, now that you've kind of wiped your hand clean of this property management company, what are you expecting to profit, on average per month for your property here?
So previously, the property management company was the gatekeeper, right? All the money flowed to them, and then they gave me a payout. And I really noticed that there was a lot of nickel and diming on my statement. When I got my statement, I said, "Oh, we made what was it? We made $3,700 for like the month of March." And I was like, "That's great, $3,700." And then I saw it was $1,400 in expenses that just kind of materialized. And I was like, "What are these expenses?" And there was a lot of question marks. So beforehand, it was on the low end, probably we started off at about $400 for the first month, which is fine. Then it grew to $1,400, and then I was like, this is not going to work with all this nickel and diming. So I got rid of that property management company. And now we are on track to do about $3,000 to $5,000 per month in profit. The numbers and having control of your books and having control of the money coming in really provides a lot of value. The metrics for me are a little bit skewed because I'm honoring a lot of the bookings that happened with the previous management company. But going forward, months that there are no bookings by the previous management company, we're screaming in terms of profit because the previous management company also mismanaged the pricing. So that's another thing I wanted to really quickly touch on. Pricing. Please price things yourself, and don't just go into Price Labs and just like set it and forget it. Pricing is Pricing is a moving thing. It's a living, moving, breathing feature that you really need to pay close attention to, and understand that just because you have 3 bedrooms and the hot tub doesn't mean that you should be priced at the same as another place that has 3 bedrooms and a hot tub. Really analyze your property versus someone else's property. Because if your property has 3 bedrooms and a hot tub and somebody else's has 3 bedrooms and a hot tub, but you have mountain views and a sweeping 120-degree panoramic view, and you've got a couple other amenities inside a fully stocked kitchen, that's not apples to apples, right? You need to come up on your price, and it should reflect this. So another reason why my income early on was low was because we were priced super low. Like, we were priced almost embarrassingly low, which was one of those things that made me call out the management company. They're like, hey, what is happening with pricing? And they're like, oh, we're increasing it 5 to 10% every week. And I was like, 5 to 10% every week? We won't get there in 3 years. Like, this needs to go up. So take control. If you want your property and you know your property can perform, take control of it and do it yourself. So at the end of the day, for the months going forward, we are on track to make a significant amount of profit, where beforehand I told you $400 one month, $1,500 the next month. I think for the coming month of June, which we're already solidly booked out for, I think we're looking at somewhere around 8,000 in profit. So it's pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with where the numbers are going, especially once we get completely clear of the management bookings, which were significantly lower than where they should have been. Once we get completely clear of that, we're looking to really make some gains in terms of the debt that was accrued building this place.
Yeah, and now you don't have to pay 25% to someone that's completely trashing your investment. You get to keep more of the upside, and you get to make more money. The way that you're currently managing it, pricing, operation side, and so really good lessons to take away. Let he made the expensive mistake, so you don't have to. Really good stuff, man. But, just to wrap things up here, what would you say to someone starting this business, like some words of advice? Clearly, there's a bunch of great lessons you kind of listed out, but what would you say to that person looking to start their own entrepreneur journey?
It's a great question. Yeah, 100% trust yourself. Trust yourself and listen to your gut, right? Your gut is right most of the times. So when I say trust yourself, if you have that idea and you have that vision, go for it. Go for it. Because at the end of the day, there's only one person that can execute that the way that you want it to be done, and that's you. So pursue it. Don't think that you need to stay inside of this box where it's like, oh, well, that person didn't do this, and that person didn't do this, and that person didn't do that. Yes, no, they didn't, because that vision is your vision. So make that vision happen. Bring it to life. That's thing number one. Like, we wouldn't have one of the highest elevated pickleball courts on the Eastern Seaboard if I hadn't been like, clear this land and let's put a pickleball court there. And then before, it was just woods, right? Now we have a pickleball court at 3,300 feet. Trust yourself. The second thing is, you can do it, but it takes action, right? You have to take action. Don't be that person that's like, oh, I'm going to do it. Don't be that. Don't be that person. Just do it. Take steps. You're going to make mistakes. Look at me. I have made a bunch of mistakes, but I'm still here, and we're still moving forward. Fail forward. And the other thing is, fail often. Fail fast, learn from it, rinse and repeat, right? You're not going to win throughout this entire thing. It's always going to be a game of learning lessons. Sometimes they're painful, sometimes they're costly. Sometimes they're cheap lessons, but they're all lessons that you're going to learn and put on your tool belt for the next one, right? So at this point, we have 3 properties, and I'm looking to expand in Wyoming. And everything that I'm learning right now, I'm going to take and push out there. So just take action. Whatever it is, just take action.
Awesome. AJ, it's been a pleasure, my man. Good chatting.
Thanks.
Glad to see all the success you've had, even with all the hiccups. But that's what the true entrepreneur journey is about, right? You're not always going to succeed. There's always going to be the losses, but it's just a matter of how you overcome those to eventually where you're going to get to. But it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for dropping all the bombs. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, Preston.